It now gives me great pleasure to call on the best Attorney General Australia's ever had, and the best Mayor for the Hornsby Shire Council, and the best Minister in the Howard Government, the Honourable Philip Ruddock, to come to the stage to say a few words. A man who's been a great supporter of the Australian Lebanese community. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Honourable Philip Ruddock. Please put your hands together and welcome the Honourable Philip Ruddock.
I better declare an interest. My best friend Paul Nicolau, if you hadn't gathered, can I thank you for your very generous introduction? Can I share in the acknowledgement of country and pay my respect to our Aboriginal forebears, past and present? Can I say how delighted Heather and I am to be here tonight and to share this occasion with your membership, but particularly your leadership. And I acknowledge Joe Qatar and I thank him for the continuing leadership that he has been offering following on so many distinguished members of your community. I am delighted that you have tonight the Consul General, and I look forward to hearing from him later. Can I say how pleased I am to see John Ajaka, the President of the Legislative Council here in New South Wales, a very distinguished Lebanese leader in the Australian community, and it will bring me to where I want to start my comments in a few moments. Can I acknowledge Dr. Anthony Hasham for his work, his commitment. I'm sorry you had a chance to speak before me because you did it so much better than I will be able to do now. Can I just take a moment to share with you what I would have said if I'd come to an event at an ordinary time speaking to you. I had the opportunity for a long time to be Australia's Immigration Minister, I think the longest serving Immigration Minister in Australia. And in that time I welcomed many people to Australia, something like 1 million additional Australians. And Australia is a very unique country because something like 35% of all Australians in Sydney are overseas born. 25% of Australians are in fact overseas born. There are only 2 countries in the world who have a larger proportion of their population overseas born than Australia. I often say to people, if cultural diversity is a problem, with 25% of our population overseas born, we should have very significant problems. But we don't. And there is one reason for that. It's because when we welcome people to Australia, we say we want you to be Australian, just the same as everybody else. We say to you that we want you to share our values with us. Parliamentary democracy, the rule of law. And just to understand the importance of that, we have been welcoming people to Lebanon, from Lebanon, for well over a century or more. We've had people in public life. I think of Marie Bashir as the significant example in this state, but we've had Lebanese premiers, not of my persuasion, but of others, as premiers. We've had very, very significant leadership in commerce, as is demonstrated by the members of your community to come together in this organisation. One of the things we say to people is that you can succeed in Australia just as much and just as successfully as everybody else, but we don't ask you to forget your past. And we make it very clear that we accept people of every religion, every culture, every race, and they are just as much Australian as anybody else. I think we are an example to the rest of the world about how that can be done. But the one point I make when I speak to people, and I often do it at citizenship ceremonies, I say, you should never forget your past. You should never be afraid to say to other people, I'm Lebanese. To tell them something of your country. I have to say that in my time in public life, this organisation's been going from 1985. I went into Parliament in 1973. I was very much aware of the problems that existed in Lebanon when the Fraser government put in place the Lebanese concession to help people flee the hostilities that were undertaken in a very difficult period. I had the opportunity in 1995 of being there when the Australian mission was reopened in Beirut. I went with many Lebanese, some of whom are in this room, and some who hosted us very generously, and we saw something of Beirut. Beirut that had been emasculated over a period of hostility that you heard about in reference to the Green Line, the Civil War. I've had the opportunity in the many visits I've paid since then to see the way in which Lebanon was rebuilt, and Beirut in particular. And it's not that I don't know it all. You can never know it all. But I visited the south, Sidon, Tyre, El Napatir. Later on, I got to see something of the other character, Jazine. I went to Baalbek. We visited the Bekaa. And I have to say, I went to my own Lebanese town. Only a few Lebanese know Ban in North Lebanon. But Ferozgorb, in Parramatta, if you didn't know Ferozgorb, you were in real trouble. I have to say that I feel when I am in Lebanon, whether it's in the Gadisha Valley, in Byblos, or wherever, I feel at home. And so, like every other Australian, when we saw what happened so recently in Beirut, I was appalled that such damage, such carnage could occur in the circumstances in which it did, and in which people who were left, often without their businesses, family members taken from us, I felt very, very grieved, as I think most Australians did. And what I wanted to say to you tonight was that none of you should feel in any way inhibited in terms of being personally generous to help in relation to the appeals that have been made. But this is not going to finish quickly. It's a task that's only just started. It's in an environment in which the economy of Lebanon has been very significantly impaired even before this wound. What I want to say to you tonight is that as proud Australians, you should be prepared to go out and talk to all other Australians about what they can do to help. I want to say to you as proud Australians, and as to somebody who has been in public life over a long period of time, people need to know what has happened, and they need to be encouraged to be as supportive in this time as they can, because there is a long way to go. And I just wanted to say to the Chamber, and you've seen something of the work that they have undertaken tonight, thank you very much for the leadership that you have displayed. Your effort is commendable. but you can't do it alone. And I say to everybody here tonight, the more you can inform others, encourage them to think about what they can do, the sooner we'll be able to restore something of what has so tragically occurred. Thank you very much.
Friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on His Excellency Consul General of Lebanon, Charbel, Macaron, to the stage to say a few words. Please put your hands together and welcome His Excellency.
Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I would like to thank everybody here, especially the sponsors and everybody who came tonight. And I would like also to thank Honorable Philip Ruddock. It's a difficult task to talk after you, Excellency. Thank you. Excellencies, Honorable John Ajaka, dear friend, who in fact he always tells me, you are very lucky to be nominated in the best state, which is New South Wales, the best country. And you're absolutely right, Excellency. Honorable Philip Ruddock, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Like usual, the Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce organizes one of the most successful events of the year. And it always happens that it's a day before the Lebanese Independence Day. Lebanon and the Lebanese people are going through a hard time. On the 4th of August, a blast ripped off large part of our beloved Beirut. It was the most powerful non-nuclear explosion in history. Hundreds were killed, thousands were injured, and over 15 billion US dollars in damages. Many countries sent messages of solidarity and offered emergency assistance. President Macaron of France came in person to Beirut. The Australian government and New South Wales government, as well as the Australian citizens, stood by Lebanon and by the Lebanese, and for that, we are really grateful. The explosion took an emotional toll on the Lebanese immigrants all over the world, and particularly in Sydney, Australia. The Australian Lebanese community has put aside their religious and political differences to join their efforts to provide financial and humanitarian assistance directly to the people living in Beirut. The effort ranged from individual GoFundMe accounts to more organized efforts. All of that gave me strength to work harder, and I was convinced more than ever that Beirut will rise again, because there are good Lebanese people like you who will do the impossible to help their fellow citizens in Lebanon. Like I always say, and like my dear Fuad said it before me now, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Thank you for everything that you have done, but the Lebanese and Lebanon still need your support. So please continue what you have already started. Thank you.